It was so good. Sorry, so yeah, I'm not apologizing for that twee. I own it completely. I am a very happy boy right now. I'm very, very happy. If you can't tell by that, I had to do it because I didn't want to clip the audio. I had to tone it down a little bit because otherwise I was blowing up the speakers or the little microphone on this camera. So happy. Yeah, if you can't tell, I absolutely loved Pacific Rim. It was everything I wanted, everything I expected. Ah, so happy. Um, just to give you a, a slight explanation of why I squeed like I squeed, um, is that when I was a little kid, like 7 years old, AMC, the TV station, back before they show commercials, which really dates me, and back when they show classics, not just whatever comes up, uh, for about a year or so, or just one summer, or however long it was, showed a double feature of science fiction, fantasy, and horror films from the 30s right up until the early 80s. So I was raised on a fairly steady diet of Ray Harryhausen, a lot of the Toho pictures, Hammer films. Um, so King Kong. I grew up watching movies like Pacific Rim. Uh, I would get down there bright and early and bright and bushy tailed, and I'll just plug myself right in front of the television and just watch these one or two movies, whatever they be, like Jason the Argonauts, Clash of the Titans, Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, King Ghidorah, King Kong, them, all these old giant monster films. I would watch them endlessly. And I've always loved giant monster movies. I do remember seeing Godzilla, the Roland Emmerich film, with my dad and going, "This isn't Godzilla. This is not Godzilla." Um, so I would definitely say Pacific Rim came out when I was that age, when I was like that age 7 to 10. When that happened, my parents, one, I would have to make them take me to see this film every single day. From Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they would have to take me to see this movie every single day until it left theaters. And they would have to chain me to the chair, or the straight jacket me, sort of like Alex in a Clockwork Orange, because I would just be running up and down the aisle, just screaming and clapping my hands, having a ball. Uh, this is everything I've really wanted in a movie. I love kaiju, I love giant monster films, and seeing one on the big screen was just glorious. Um, but I think I should stop fanboying right now and get down to maybe some more basics, because I could just gush and gush and gush. keep that Try to keep that under control. Um, Basic story is that these kaiju, these monsters, have come from another dimension through a rift at the bottom of the Pacific, and the only thing that we can do to stand against them are build these massive robots called Jaegers. They're meant to fight them, that can match them one on one. And there's an early fight. The main character Riley. I don't think I'm getting spoilers away. His There's a trauma on a fight he has with the kaiju, and he leaves the army. Uh, like 5 years later, it picks up. There's only four kaiju left. Sorry, there's only four Jaeger left. The rest have been destroyed in combat. Leaders of the world have thought the Jaegers are now no longer a viable option, so they're building this massive seawall, 200 foot high, like, maybe a quarter mile deep or whatever, how much it is. And that's supposed to take over, and we're just supposed to exist with the kaiju. Obviously, that doesn't work, and things rarely work against giant monsters, against kaiju. Thunder. Yay! Maybe it's a kaiju. Um, but yeah, But obviously, Riley comes back. He's the has been. He's the wash up. He's the one with the scars. and he teams up with a young novice pilot to take control of his old Jaeger called Gypsy Danger. Um, a lot of people say, "Oh, this is Transformers meets Godzilla." That's a very vague reference to it. Effectively, this is more Gundam, I guess. This film is definitely influenced from a lot of Japanese anime, a lot of the Japanese culture, pop culture, I should say. So obviously Toho, a lot of the old Godzilla pictures, Rodan and Mothra, King Ghidorah, Anguirus, all those guys are very much influenced in this movie, but aren't directly. I would say none of the monsters directly look like. Well, there's one that appears briefly in a flashback that does roughly resemble one of the Toho monsters, but that's I guess inconsequential. Um, I never grew up watching a lot of anime, so I've seen some reviews online where they're mentioning these anime shows. Beyond Gundam, that's the only one that rings a bell with me, and I only ever watched the first. I don't know what first, if it's the first series or the first reincarnation, whichever popped up on U.S. shores on Toonami and Cartoon Network in the middle late '90s, early 2000s. That's what I watched around the time Dragon Ball Z came around. Um, but yeah, visual first. First need to address that. I'm just hopping around here because I'm just so excited. I really don't know where to start. Uh, this is directed by Guillermo del Toro, Academy Award nominated director. He's a big fan favorite. He did Pan's Labyrinth, Hellboy 1 and 2, Blade 2, Kronos, Devil's Backbone, Mimic. Fantastic filmmaker. He was actually going to direct The Hobbit before he ultimately left due to all the all the issues going on with that movie. And I'm so excited. And there is such an infusion of Del Toro-ness in this movie. It feels, it looks, it is a Del Toro picture from stem to stern. Uh, Del Toro's always been talking about the story. Del Toro's always been a very visual filmmaker, and he's also been a storyteller, and that's something that's always been. I do consider myself a writer. I've never got anything produced, but whatever. I do write quite a bit on myself, and I always have felt some sort of inspiration from Del Toro that his movies, on the surface, you can watch it as just an action movie. You can just watch it just as a horror film, but always underneath there's different layers about connection to people and about relationships, about what it is to be human. There's a lot of different themes going on underneath the surface that he's able to always sneak into his movies, and that's also the same for Pacific Rim. There's definitely an undercurrent about relationships with people, letting someone else in to your own life, and it's not hammered on top of you. I think it is there, and the reason for that is there's something called the drift, where to control these Jaegers, you have two pilots, and they have to connect mentally, so they can see each other's memories, and they're let inside the other person, which is just a really cool idea um, that I love. So so it does tell. So there's other stuff going. This is not just bang bang shoot 'em up, beat 'em up, rock'em sock'em movie, which it is. I mean, this, if you're going for just pure entertainment, you're gonna get your money's worth out of it. This is big, and there's a lot of collateral damage. What do you expect? These are creatures, and these are robots that are 200, 300 foot in height. So these aren't, Transformers are about 30 feet in height. So they're like that old 12-inch classic GI Joe action figure. Compared to me, I'm 6'2". So that's the scale we're talking about. So we're talking about robots 300 feet high, kaiju, 300 foot, 200, 300 foot high. The scale is just massive. And but back to the story. I've seen a lot of I've browsed a few reviews that are really going, oh, this is really light on story and all that. This is very much a story driven bloody train, story driven plot. It's I would say it's not it is somewhat character driven as well, but predominantly it is plot driven versus versus uh, character driven. Um, and I still really enjoyed it. I thought, and once again, I was really wrapped up in a lot of the action, a lot of the touching me as a small boy, touching that small child mindset of me. So, but yeah, there was definitely I could definitely pick up the I there were deeper levels in here, relationships between other people, and that's something that is great about this movie is that this is not just a film about, oh, America to the rescue, America is going to shoulder everything. This is a film where you have different countries. You have Russia, China, Australia, and America. This is a multinational force out to try to protect mankind. This is the world trying to save itself from the apocalypse. Uh, but if you don't want to watch it for any sort, if you don't want to read into it, if you just want action, you can still get a lot of enjoyment out of it. For me, I got a lot more out of it, and I did feel really emotional about it, which is something that I don't think you will see in any review for any tentpole film probably ever. Um, but I did feel emotion. There were points where I was almost tempted to cry, not necessarily because of maybe like a really emotional moment, which there are a few really good emotional uh, links in the film that are just driven purely by images, purely by the moving image, and less about the dialogue. Um, but once again, saying this is the kind of film I grew up with, so that way it really gave me such a wave of nostalgia and remembering back to my childhood and almost reminding me of why I really want to get into filmmaking, why I want to, tell stories, why I love telling stories, why I love writing stories. So this film, in some ways, part inspiration, part just reminding me, there's a big canvas out there. You should just tell whatever story you want. Just get out there, be big and be bold, and just really always tap into who you were as a kid, what energized you at that young age where you first latched onto your passion, whether I think that be video games or books or for me movies. Or cooking or whatever your passion is for me. So for me, that's why maybe the film connects to me very much on a somewhat deeper level. That it does go back to that small 8-year-old boy, 7-year-old boy, 10-year-old boy sitting in front of the television watching these big monsters on his television, and just being so enraptured by all this and just so amazed by the magic of movies. So this film really got to me in terms of that, and I will be unabashed in saying that. This film did get to me. I did feel an emotional connection to it on that level. Reminding me, okay, this is why you want to get into movies. This is why you love movies. Why you're passionate about movies is something like this. Is Pacific Rim. Uh, it's one of those things I'm hard pressed to put into words, but that's the best I can say. I absolutely love the film because it did touch me like that. It did uh, get to me in that way. So back to more of the movie and less about me being a very emotional outpouring to the 10 people who will watch this video. I'm looking at you, Joanna, calling you out. Sorry, had to do that to a friend. Um, but yeah, so the action wise, what you obviously want to know is the big robots fighting each other, and I'm Del Toro has always been also been a really good action director. He's not just really kinetic, really frenetic editing like some other directors are. The edits here are much slower. There's a breathing space, which I think a lot of people will. Some people might not like because they're so used to that really rapid fire machine gun style editing, and might not be used to the much slower style. But that works. Is the battles are much more a mixture of just hand to hand combat, kind of I want to say wrestling or AMA or MMA kind of style, but there's a grappling. This is very physical. This is not the kaiju wielding a bladed arm versus the Jaegers wielding just massive swords or something. This is it does get to the Jaegers pulling out bladed weapons or some other kind of weapon, but this is otherwise just gripping on and just tearing and bashing and bashing and immovable object meets a movable object and just going at it until one of them becomes movable and stops moving. Uh, and there are and so in that way there are the fights are a little similar, just in terms of the physical nature, but each fight is, however, different in how it plays out and in how each Jaeger and each kaiju reacts. Um, I th- I might have mentioned to other friends, but I've never mentioned it here in the review that I I love monsters when there's multiple versions of a monster. I get a little annoyed when there's one particular look of okay, here's the monster, here's kind of what it looks like, here's what it does, and maybe we'll have a different variety that's maybe this version's colored green, this version's colored red, and this version can do something minorly different from this version. Um, then it's getting loud now. There, there are quite a number of different kaiju. Each reacts in a certain way. Each has its own fighting style, which gives a different feel to each battle. The Jaegers themselves, the four ones that you see, primary ones that you see. Gypsy Danger is the American one. Cherno Alpha, which is this big hulking Russian tank of a thing. There's the Chinese one, Crimson Typhoon, which is this wonderful, multi-arm, multi-bladed creation that is really nimble, fairly quick, piloted by triplets, which is different from the other ones. Uh, Striker Eureka, the new version, the brand new version that was just produced before the Jaeger program was shut down. That one is top of the line, best weapons, fast, and all that. And each one has their own little thing that makes them separate. So visually they look very different. They're very easy to tell apart. Uh, and the way they fight is also a little different. When you get to see Cherno Alpha fight, it's the very uh, brawling, getting close and just bash, bash, bash. Striker Eureka mixes in missiles and is very nimble. Same with Crimson Typhoon, and that way it did bring the fights to have each one have a slightly different flavor to them, and it's not you're just not watching the same action beat over and over and over again. So I really like that. Um, my one and that talking about the other Jaegers, I'll get to my one complaint about the picture is that the only crews you really spend time with are for Gypsy Danger, the leads, as well as for Striker Eureka. I kind of wish there was more time spent with the Russians and the Chinese and learning more about them, maybe some interaction with them. This film is 2 hours and 10 minutes long, and I would have sat through another half hour or hour if that was some deleted material. Um, because I would love to see more of them. It's always sometimes the side characters. There's certain side characters you would like to see more of. But so that was like my one gripe about the movie, though I sort of expected that going in that okay, the other pilots, these other Jaegers probably won't get a lot of screen time beyond just suiting up and looking tough. So that's my one complaint about the movie is that. Um, Otherwise, I don't have much. I'm so happy. Um, but So in terms of action, in terms of story, this is to me this is a wonderful summer movie and just a wonderful action picture. Um, a wonderful science fiction movie, wonderful monster movie. But let me get to the other elements. Actors, Charlie Hunnam. I I don't know how to pronounce this. It looks like human, but with an N put in there, so I don't know how to pronounce his name. I've never seen Sons of Anarchy. Um, Everyone tells me it's great. I've never watched it, but he's really good as the lead. Rinko, I've gone blank on her last name. His Japanese co-pilot. She's really good as well. I think that some people might have an issue with the accent. I had no issue with the accent. I thought she was also a very good actress, and I would hope that to see her more in other movies. Um, I've never seen Always Sunny in Philadelphia. The humor just doesn't click with me, but Charlie Day from that show is in it as this sort of punkish sort of scientist who is. It was a lot of fun. He has another scientist buddy. I don't know the actor's name, and they're just constantly quarreling with each other. One is very mathematical, while Charlie Day is he wants to get inside the guts of the kaiju and gets to the inner workings and all that. Uh, Idris Elba, if you don't know who Idris Elba is, you need to go to Netflix and look him up. He is just an amazing British actor, and there was recently today he was saying that it's just rumors for me to be the next Bond. He has what it takes to be James Bond, and Elba is this just very stoic, very good, and he has this a wonderful, powerful charisma by being just very direct, and I don't want to say flat, but just very stern in his delivery, and in that way, it's very charismatic and just so cool. Um, and the other, obviously, the big actor in here is Guillermo del Toro, regular Ron Perlman as this black market dealer named Hannibal Chow, which makes no sense. But he's like, oh, it's named out. Things like I took it after a historical figure at my favorite takeout place in Brooklyn. He's a black market who deals in kaiju parts because there is always someone who believes that some weirdo, probably toxic sustenance will make you get up a little bit or give you a longer life or something like that. So he's in. It's Ron Perlman. If you're a fan of the genre, you're gonna love him. A couple rows behind me, I heard some guys, obviously Del Toro fans, obviously Perlman fans like me, giggling and having a blast with him when he's on the screen. So the cast for this movie, as I think always in a Del Toro picture, is very solid, and they do the roles wonderfully. So this is a very solid cast led by a very very solid director. I do like the acting. Um, so visual effect. I'll get to visual effects in this one, but music. Wow, this is a really good soundtrack, and I really don't buy soundtracks for movies. This one I might have to. It's big. It's somewhat industrial and kind of a rock and roll thing mixed with metal. It's sort of everything mixed poured into one pot, and it's just great. But get to visual effects. Pacific Rim sorry, will be a contender for best visual effects this year at the Oscars. And so far, I would have to say it should win. So far, nothing else has come out that will it has impressed me enough to go, okay, that's gonna be a winner. I think Pacific Rim will get to that final three. The visual effects are great. Big fun thing about Del Toro is he's always the guy who builds practical sets whenever possible. So the Jaeger heads where the pilots are, that's all practical. Either the actors are really strapped into these things. These are not, the actors are standing there on sleds and green screen is around them. These are real sets that these folks were strapped into. And the video, if you go online and find the video blogs, it's fascinating. It's amazing that no one was injured. So yeah, visual effects top notch. This is a big movie, like $180 million, I think it was. This was from every penny is on the screen. Every penny was spent on the monsters, the Jaegers, the environments. It looks gorgeous, and Del Toro movies have always looked gorgeous. This is shot by Guillermo Navarro, who is generally Del Toro's DP, and he is a wonderful master of light and color, and it's a very colorful movie. And so it is visually it's gorgeous. Visually, I would say it's flawless. I did see it in IMAX 3D. I got no problem with 3D. I love 3D. I've always said I love 3D. This is a conversion. This is an interesting conversion in that Del Toro was going to shoot it in 3D, but felt that 3D could somehow make everything a little scaled down, so they opted to do 2D. And nearly in principal photography, it was decided to convert to 3D. I'm still in the camp of shoot native, but this is maybe starting to make me edge a little towards conversion, because this was started. This shows what a good conversion can do, because one, Del Toro got a lot more money from Warner Brothers to do it, and two, they started pretty much near the end of principal photography, right at the start of post production. So this is a conversion, but it's very well done for conversion. I would say it pretty much looks like it was shot native. This was done beautifully, and there are quite a few shots of just stuff flying out the camera during the kaiju fight. So you have body parts, you have debris, you have arms, you have weird viscera and this other thing. So there is depth, there is space, there is scope, and there's also stuff flying towards you. So if that's something you've been missing from 3D, Pacific Rim will give that to you. Um, so obviously I saw it in IMAX. See it in IMAX or whatever giant screen is closest to you, Big D, RPX, ETX, whatever the largest screen you can see Pacific Rim on, watch it. Once again, the scale is just amazing. I honestly don't think you can get that just going, oh, I'm just going to watch a regular and it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be the same experience. You need to watch it in IMAX. You need to watch it on the biggest screen possible, the biggest audio, biggest picture, to really, I feel, get the sense of the scope that this film is going for. This film, this is why you go to the movies, and this is why you go big. Um, it's plain and simple. Um, but yeah, I'm sorry, I just keep gushing because once again, I absolutely love this movie, and this is a perfect movie because it is an original idea. Yes, it is influenced by manga and by anime and by a lot of Japanese pop culture, but who cares? It's an original script. It's done by an Academy Award nominated director, one of the best living directors there is. Has a very solid cast. This is for everyone complaining about the breadth and the infusion of sequels and comic book movies and remakes and all that. Here's an original film. It's fantastic. You need to go watch it. I cannot I cannot stress this enough. And I'm certainly going to be watching Pacific Rim again and again and again, and I'm going to watch it until I can watch it no more. And then I'm going to pre-order the 3D Blu-ray the moment it becomes available. Um, so yeah, this Pacific Rim. If you've been looking, if you've been sitting there, I don't know watch the bloody movie, make your own judgments. It's so worth it. If you've been looking for a fun, entertaining movie for the summer, watch Pacific Rim. And I would certainly say, if you don't know, I got, a 10-year-old kid, I got a 12-year-old kid, take them to see it. They will love it. This is a movie that I think whole families could probably enjoy. In terms of violence and language, there's nothing that, if you take your kids to see any of the Transformers movies, any of the Pirates, or even any of the Harry Potter movies, or Hunger Games, or anything like that, this is PG-13. There's nothing in there that will probably scare them or, offend you in any way, shape, or form. This is a wonderful family outing. Everybody will enjoy it. But like I said, I absolutely love Pacific Rim. It did go for me. It did get me at a deeper level than just simply pure adrenaline, pure physical reaction. This is a film that for me will certainly be my top 10 of the year, if not number one, for many reasons beyond it's such a wonderful escapist movie, but that it did affect me a little more than that. So yeah, I think that's about. Oh, one more thing. Stay for credits. Stay for credits. About the above the line or department head credits, the what generally would have been the opening title sequence. Where you have like fun images and the direct this cast member, this the DP, the production center. That old opening credits bit that's now moved to the start of the end credits. I don't know what you want to call that. The showcase end credits, I guess. Right after that, there's a brief scene that's awesome. That's just so cool, and it had me clap. As soon as it came up, I started clapping. I was like, I know exactly what's going to happen. Oh my god, I cannot wait for the payoff is wonderful. And I would say wait for the very end of the credits. There's not a scene, but there's something there that is for me also. It was simple. It's simple, but it is also very touching. I'm not going to say what it is, but if you pay attention to the film news at all in the last couple weeks, you might get a slight clue about what that is and about who's passed away. That's what gave it away. But so it's something that is simple but touching, and certainly if you wait to the end credits and you don't know what it is you just saw for that end credit bit, hopefully that will inspire you to go and take a look and be exposed to more movies like this film. So yeah, that's my final bit. I love Pacific Rim. It was good. I'm so happy. I did squee very loud in the theater. I did freak some people out. I have no shame. I will when I love a movie, I have no shame and I will admit it. Um, but yeah, so serious note, watch Pacific Rim, see it as many times as you can. Bring your friends, bring your family. I actually took my mother to go see it, and she fell in love with it. There's humor, there's action, there's some drama. There's everything in this movie, and giant monsters, which is always good. Um, but yeah, so yeah, I'm closing out now. This is the end. I know Asylum has released Atlantic Rim, aka Attack from Beneath, but I'll call it Atlantic Rim. I'm gonna watch that and probably do a block versus mock either tomorrow or Sunday. Probably tomorrow. Why not? It's opening weekend. So yeah, go see Pacific Rim, biggest screen possible, best film of the summer. Sorry Abrams, sorry Star Trek, and if I always ask my friends, so if you can only see one film in this year, what would it be? Sorry Peter Jackson, sorry Hobbit. It was always Pacific Rim. So, goodbye.